Ancient Speaker Zix9 was midway through their monthly commerce report when the station's proximity alarms screamed to life. The elegant crystal dome of Council Chamber 7 erupted in flashing crimson emergency lights, casting ominous shadows across the faces of 200 assembled representatives. Security breach in progress. The station's AI announced, its usually melodious voice sharp with urgency. Unknown vessel detected within primary defense perimeter. Zix9's four eyes blinked in rapid succession as they turned to the massive holographic display dominating the chamber center. Their words died in their throat. Where empty space had existed moments before, a warship now hung against the backdrop of stars, impossibly massive and darker than the void itself. "Impossible," whispered High Counselor Ven, her crystalline form catching the emergency lights. "Our barrier matrix is impenetrable. Nothing cold." The rest of her statement vanished in a wave of gasps as the vessel fully materialized. It stretched nearly 2 kilometers in length, its hull seeming to drink in both light and sensor scans. But what caused the real stir was the insignia prominently displayed across its bow, a stylized Earth wrapped in laurels. "Humans," Chancellor Kirks chittered, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "This is absurd. They're quarantined to their solar system. Their technology is centuries behind." Security vessels responding. The AI interrupted. 3 sleek council ships streaked toward the intruder, weapons primed. They passed straight through the human vessel, as if it were made of smoke, their energy weapons having no effect. The chamber erupted in chaos. Dozens of representatives began shouting at once, some demanding immediate military response, others calling for evacuation. A few of the more militant species were already reaching for personal weapons. Silence. Zix9's voice cut through the pandemonium. Centuries of speaking practice lent their words a gravity that commanded attention. "We are the Galactic Council. We will not descend into panic at the first sign of the unprecedented." As if in response to their words, the phantom ship shifted, not through any visible means of propulsion. It simply changed position, appearing slightly closer to the station. The movement defied every known law of physics, happening without acceleration or momentum. Primary sensors are unable to confirm the vessel's physical presence, the AI reported, a note of confusion in its artificial voice. Secondary and tertiary scanning arrays report contradictory data. The ship appears to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Chancellor Kirks's antennae twitched. "That's not possible. Even our most advanced quantum computing can't maintain macro-scale quantum states for more than microseconds." "Apparently," Zix9 said dryly, "the humans didn't read our physics textbooks." The chamber's main viewscreen flickered to life, displaying a comprehensive sensor analysis. The readings were unlike anything in the Council's vast database. The ship seemed to phase in and out of reality at frequencies that shouldn't exist, its energy signature resembling a mathematical impossibility more than a spacecraft. "How?" High Counselor Ven demanded, her crystalline form vibrating with tension. "How did they achieve this level of advancement in mere decades? We've had them under constant surveillance." A junior analyst, their scales shifting nervous colors, spoke up from a monitoring station. "Counselor, according to these readings, the ship isn't just advanced. It's operating on principles we don't even have theories for. It's as if they've discovered an entirely new branch of physics." The phantom ship shifted again, this time orienting itself to face the council chamber directly. Its presence felt deliberate, almost theatrical, a calculated display of power wrapped in mystery. Zix9 settled back into their speaking platform, all 4 eyes fixed on the impossible vessel. 50 years of memories crashed through their mind, centering on one particular moment. A human woman's knowing smile as the quarantine vote passed. They had all dismissed her then. That, Zix9 realized, might have been the Council's first mistake. The Council chamber's automated systems finally silenced the blaring alarms, leaving behind a heavy silence broken only by the soft hum of scanning equipment. The phantom ship hung motionless, a dark testament to humanity's defiance of their expectations. "We need context," Chancellor Kirks announced, mandibles twitching. "Access the archives. Show us everything from the quarantine vote." Zix9 felt their primary heart clench. "I was there," they said, their voice carrying the weight of decades. "I remember it, as if it happened yesterday." The chamber's holographic display flickered, and suddenly they were watching scenes from 50 years ago. The same chamber, but filled with different faces. At the speaker's podium stood Dr. Amanda Brooks, Earth's last representative to the Council. She cut a striking figure in her white diplomatic uniform, red hair pulled back severely, green eyes sharp with an intelligence that many had mistaken for mere defiance. "You can't do this," she had said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "Humanity won't accept imprisonment in our own solar system." The recording showed younger versions of current council members, their faces stern with righteous certainty. High Counselor Venn, then just a junior representative, was leading the charge. "The evidence is irrefutable," holographic Venn declared. "Your species has demonstrated aggressive expansion patterns, resource consumption rates that far exceed sustainable levels, and a disturbing tendency toward military solutions." The recorded Dr. Brooks smiled then, not the diplomatic smile they were used to, but something else, something that made Zix9's scales ripple with remembered unease even now. "Time will prove you wrong," she said softly. "And when it does, remember, you chose this path." The recording continued as the council voted, 189 in favor of quarantine, 11 abstaining. Not a single vote in humanity's favor. As guards moved to escort her from the chamber, Dr. Brooks turned back one last time. "You think you're containing a threat," she said, "but you're really just giving us exactly what we need. Time to develop without your interference, your restrictions, your limitations." She laughed then, the sound echoing through both past and present chambers. "You've made a terrible mistake." The recording faded, leaving the council members shifting uncomfortably in their seats. "Search the monitoring records," ordered Chancellor Kirks. "Show us their technological progress during the quarantine." New images appeared. Earth's cities growing, their first Mars colony, mining operations in the asteroid belt, all exactly what the Council expected to see. Steady but unremarkable advancement. "These can't be accurate," High Counselor Venn interjected, her crystalline form catching the light as she stood. "The vessel outside demonstrates technology centuries beyond these recordings." A junior analyst, different from before, spoke up. "Counselors, I'm detecting something strange in the monitoring data. There are gaps, microscopic interruptions in our surveillance, growing more frequent over the past 50 years. Zix9 felt their scales go cold. They knew we were watching. Every advancement we saw was exactly what they wanted us to see, finished Chancellor Kirks, antennae drooping in realization. The Phantom ship chose that moment to pulse with a soft blue light. Symbols began appearing in the space around it. Mathematical formulae, engineering diagrams, quantum mechanics theories that made the Council's most advanced physicists gasp in shock. "These are from our secure archives," someone shouted. "Our most classified research." But Zix9 noticed something else. Between the stolen equations were others, human theories and discoveries that built upon, and then surpassed the Council's knowledge. The display wasn't just a show of stolen secrets. It was a demonstration of how humanity had taken the Council's science and transcended it. Dr. Brooks' final words echoed in Zix9's mind. "You've made a terrible mistake." Looking at the impossible ship and the revolutionary equations dancing around it, Zix9 finally understood just how right she had been. Dr. Catherine Reynolds took another sip of her now cold coffee, staring at the quantum manifold projector she'd accidentally created 3 decades ago. The device hummed softly in her private lab aboard the Phantom ship, its swirling energies a reminder of how a simple mistake had changed human history. Recording personal log, she spoke to her AI assistant. Sometimes I wonder if the Council knows it wasn't our anger that drove our advancement. It was our curiosity." She smiled, remembering that morning in her garage. She'd been trying to create an instant coffee maker that wouldn't make the beverage taste like recycled Starship fuel. Instead, her experimental quantum heating process had torn a tiny hole in reality. The hole had lasted only microseconds, but it was enough. Through it, she glimpsed something. Spaces between spaces. Realities between realities. The coffee maker exploded, of course. She continued her log, chuckling. "Took out half my garage and all my eyebrows." But the readings, those beautiful, impossible readings. The lab door hissed open, admitting Captain Michael Harrison. "Still recording your logs, Kate. The Council's in full panic mode up there." "History should know the truth," she replied, gesturing to the manifold projector. "Everyone assumes we spent 50 years plotting revenge. Really, we just wanted to understand why coffee couldn't quantum tunnel directly into our cups." Harrison laughed, but his eyes were serious as he studied the device. "Your coffee maker changed everything. Without it, we might have actually tried to fight the Council's quarantine the old-fashioned way." Catherine nodded, remembering the years following her discovery. While the Council watched Earth's visible progress, humanity's best minds had gathered in secret underground labs. They weren't developing weapons or planning war. They were exploring the impossible spaces Catherine had glimpsed, learning to exist between moments, to slide between dimensions. "The first successful test nearly gave me a heart attack," she said, pulling up the historical footage. The hologram showed a small probe disappearing from normal space, slipping into what they now call the quantum void. "The Council's greatest mistake," Harrison mused, "was assuming isolation would limit us. They never considered that removing their influence would free us to explore paths they'd dismissed as impossible." Catherine's fingers danced over her console, bringing up images of humanity's hidden progress. Quantum void generators growing from prototype to production. The first human volunteers learning to phase their consciousness between realities. The breakthrough that allowed entire ships to exist in multiple states simultaneously. "We didn't develop this technology to break their quarantine," she said softly. "We developed it because it was beautiful, because it asked questions no one had thought to ask before. The fact that it made their barriers meaningless was just a bonus." Harrison's communicator chimed. "They're still trying to scan us," he reported, amused. "Their sensors keep passing right through the ship because we're only partially existing in their reality. Should we show them why?" Catherine stood, straightening her lab coat. "Not yet. Let them sweat a little longer. They spent 50 years believing they knew exactly what humanity was capable of. Let them spend a few more hours realizing how wrong they were." She approached the quantum manifold projector, watching its swirling energies with pride. This device, born from a coffee maker's destruction, had rewritten humanity's understanding of physics. Now it powered every phantom ship in the fleet, allowing them to slide between realities as easily as conventional ships travel through space. "You know what the funniest part is?" she asked Harrison, who raised an eyebrow in question. "I still haven't figured out how to make a decent cup of coffee." The captain laughed, but their moment of levity was interrupted by a priority alert. The Council was requesting direct communication. "Ready to show them what humanity's been up to?" Harrison asked. Catherine smiled, thinking of all the amazing discoveries they had yet to reveal. "Oh, Captain," she said, "they haven't seen anything yet." Captain Michael Harrison stood before the quantum communications array, adjusting his dress uniform one final time. Behind him, the bridge crew of the UES Phantom worked with practiced precision, their movements betraying none of the anticipation that charged the air. "Are you sure about the letters, sir?" Lieutenant Rodriguez asked, holding the weathered leather satchel. "It seems rather unconventional for first contact." Harrison smiled, taking the satchel. "Conventional is what they expect, Maria. Besides, these aren't just letters. They're weapons of a sort, the kind that wins wars without firing a shot." The main display flickered to life, showing the council chamber in all its crystalline glory. 200 faces stared back at them, a mosaic of species united in their barely concealed fear and fascination. "Greetings, Galactic Council," Harrison began, his voice calm and measured. "I am Captain Michael Harrison of the United Earth ship Phantom. I bring messages from Earth." Chancellor Kirks's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. Harrison knew from years of covert observation. "Messages. You breach our strongest defenses, display impossible technology, and come bearing messages." Indeed, Harrison reached into the satchel, withdrawing a handful of handwritten letters. "This one is for you, Chancellor, from 12-year-old Tommy Chen in Nebraska. He's particularly fascinated by your species' architectural achievements on Proxima II." The chamber erupted in confused murmurs as Harrison held up the letter. "He especially admires the memorial garden you built for your late clutchmate. The way the morning light catches the crystal spires." His words, not mine. Kirks's antennae went rigid with shock. The memorial garden was a private sanctuary, unknown to all but a few trusted friends. "This one," Harrison continued, pulling out another letter, "is for High Counselor Venn. Young Sarah Martinez was moved by your speech at the Arts Academy on Centauri Prime last year. Your words about finding beauty in different forms of existence inspired her to study crystalline biology." Venn's crystalline form trembled slightly, casting rainbow refractions across the chamber. One by one, Harrison withdrew letters, each addressed to specific council members, each containing personal details that should have been impossible for humanity to know. Children's drawings of alien worlds, poems about distant cultures, questions about traditions and customs that even many council members didn't fully understand. "How?" Zix9 finally asked, their voice barely a whisper. "How do you know these things?" Harrison's smile never wavered. "Did you really think your quarantine could stop us from exploring? From learning? From understanding?" He gestured to his ship. "The Phantom Drive doesn't just let us move through space. It lets us observe, study, and appreciate." He pulled out one final letter, this one sealed with red wax. "This one is from Dr. Catherine Reynolds to the Council Science Division. She thought you might be interested in her coffee maker story, along with some preliminary quantum physics theories she thinks you'll find illuminating." The chamber had gone deathly quiet. The initial fear was giving way to something else, a dawning realization that humanity hadn't spent 50 years plotting revenge. They'd spent it watching, learning, and understanding their supposed jailers on a deeply personal level. "We could have appeared in your homes," Harrison said softly. "In your most secure facilities. We could have struck from the shadows between realities. Instead, we chose to come here, to this chamber, bearing letters from our children to yours." He opened Tommy Chen's letter and began to read. "Dear Chancellor Kirks, I hope this letter finds you well. I saw your garden last spring, when the crystal flowers were in bloom." The words echoed through the silent chamber, bridging the gap between species more effectively than any weapon ever could. This wasn't first contact. This was humanity revealing they'd been in contact all along, choosing to learn and understand rather than fear and hate. And as Harrison read the simple, heartfelt words of a child to the most powerful beings in the galaxy, the true victory was already won. Junior analyst VEX-17 wasn't supposed to be monitoring the deep space quantum arrays. It wasn't their assigned station, but curiosity had always been their weakness. While the council remained transfixed by Captain Harrison's reading of the Earth children's letters, VEX-17's 4 pairs of hands worked furiously across multiple holographic interfaces. "That can't be right," they muttered, their bioluminescent spots pulsing with excitement. The quantum arrays were picking up echoes, thousands of them, flickering in and out of existence across council space. "Counselor Venn," they called out, their voice cracking. "I believe you need to see this." The crystalline counselor glided over, her form catching and refracting the chamber's light. As she observed VEX-17's displays, Her usual rainbow refractions turned a stark, alarmed white. "Captain Harrison," she interrupted, her voice sharp with newfound fear. "Would you care to explain why we're detecting phantom signatures throughout Council space?" Harrison's reading paused, his smile unchanged, but his eyes twinkling with fresh amusement. "Ah, someone finally checked the quantum bands. I was wondering how long that would take." The main display split, showing a map of Council space. Dots of light flickered everywhere, near colonial outposts, by trading routes around quarantined worlds. Each dot represented a phantom ship, appearing and disappearing like stars winking in and out of existence. "Impossible," Chancellor Kirks chittered. "You couldn't have built a fleet this size without detection." Actually, a new voice joined in, as Dr. Catherine Reynolds stepped onto the Phantom's bridge. "We didn't build them all. Some belong to other species you've quarantined over the centuries. Turns out we weren't the only ones who decided to think outside conventional physics." The display zoomed in on a cluster of phantom signatures near the Arcturus sector. The ships there showed distinct architectural styles, some crystalline, others organic, a few that seemed to be made of pure energy. "You armed other quarantine species?" Zix-9 asked, their scales shifting to alarm red. "Armed?" Harrison chuckled. "No, ancient speaker. We shared. We taught. We learned from them in return." "Did you really think humans were the only species that might develop differently in isolation?" Reynolds approached the camera, her eyes bright with scientific enthusiasm. "The crystalline minds of Arcturus developed quantum resonance technology. The organic collective of Proxima created living ships that exist in multiple dimensions. The energy beings of Ta Ceti, well, their contributions to quantum physics made my coffee maker accident look primitive." The chamber erupted in chaos as more quantum signatures appeared. Hidden fleets, secret installations, entire civilizations that had been developing in the spaces between normal spacetime. "This isn't just humanity's rebellion," Harrison explained calmly over the din. "This is the united response of every species you try to contain. We call ourselves the Quantum Alliance." Vex 17's hands flew over their console, analyzing the signatures. The combined fleet, it's larger than the Council's defense forces, they reported, their spots now pulsing with anxiety. "And yet we haven't fired a shot," Harrison pointed out. "We haven't seized your worlds or destroyed your installations. We've been watching, waiting, and choosing a better path." Reynolds stepped forward. "We're not here to overthrow the Council. We're here to show you that your method of handling primitive species isn't just wrong. It's counterproductive. You've created a society that fears difference, that tries to force every civilization into the same developmental path. And in doing so," Harrison finished, "you've brought together the very forces you sought to keep apart. The question now is, what will you do with this knowledge?" The quantum signatures continued to flicker across the display, a dance of technological achievement that defied the Council's understanding of reality itself. And in the silence that followed Harrison's question, the truth became clear. The age of Council dominance was over, ended not by war or violence, but by the combined ingenuity of those they'd tried to suppress. The Council chamber's atmosphere shifted as a slender figure rose from among the junior representatives. Her scaled skin, previously matching the local species perfectly, began to shimmer and change. Gasps echoed through the chamber as Council Security Chief Elizabeth Morgan shed her alien disguise, revealing human features underneath. "I believe," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the now silent chamber, "it's time we discussed the real reason for the quarantine program." Chancellor Kirks's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Security. Seize the imposter." "That won't be necessary," Morgan replied calmly, holding up a small quantum device. "After all, I've been your chief of security for the past 20 years. Your guards answer to me." She smiled as the security forces remained motionless. "Quite effectively, I might add." "Impossible," High Counselor Venn whispered, her crystalline form clouding with distress. Our genetic scans were designed by humans, Morgan interrupted, specifically by me. Did you never wonder why Earth seemed so interested in biotechnology before the quarantine? We knew this day was coming. We planned for it. Captain Harrison's image on the main display showed no surprise. Chief Morgan has served Earth well, he said, though I suspect she has some interesting files to share with the Council. Morgan nodded, activating her quantum device. The chamber's holographic displays filled with classified documents, secret communications, and hidden directives. 50 years of Council conspiracy laid bare. The quarantine program wasn't about protecting the galaxy from dangerous species, Morgan explained, walking to the center of the chamber. It was about maintaining technological control. A select group within the Council has been suppressing emerging civilizations for millennia, ensuring no one could challenge their power. She gestured to specific documents, highlighting communications between Council members long dead. Earth wasn't quarantined because we were dangerous. We were quarantined because some of you recognized our potential. You saw what we might become, and it terrified you. Zix-9 rose slowly, their scales shifting to a deep blue of resignation. How long have you known? Since the beginning, Morgan replied. Dr. Amanda Brooks wasn't just making empty threats 50 years ago. She was letting you know that we understood exactly what you were doing. We just chose to play along. The documents continued to scroll, showing similar patterns with other quarantine species. Each time a civilization showed signs of unique development or innovative thinking, they were labeled as dangerous and isolated. The truly ironic part, Morgan continued, is that your conspiracy succeeded beyond your wildest dreams. You did create a group of civilizations that would fundamentally change the galaxy, just not in the way you feared. She turned to face the Council members directly. Some of you knew nothing about this. Some of you suspected but stayed quiet. And some of you, her eyes fixed on specific members, actively participated in suppressing countless species' natural development. The chamber erupted in accusations and denials. Ancient alliances began to fracture as centuries of deception came to light. We're not here for revenge, Morgan stated firmly, her voice cutting through the chaos. Earth and the Quantum Alliance want reform, not retribution. But the old system ends today. Captain Harrison spoke again from the display. The question isn't whether change is coming. It's whether the Council will be part of that change or become irrelevant to it. As if to emphasize his point, more phantom ships began appearing around the station, each representing a species that had been deemed too dangerous, too different, too innovative to join galactic society. Morgan looked around the chamber, at faces showing everything from guilt to fear to hope. For centuries, you asked the galaxy to develop according to your rules. Now it's time to learn some new ones. The quantum device in her hand pulsed once, and in that moment, decades of careful planning, patient infiltration, and silent observation culminated in humanity's greatest intelligence operation. They hadn't just beaten the Council at their own game. They'd rewritten the rules entirely. The phantom ship's hull shimmered as a new section materialized, extending a crystalline docking bridge directly into the Council chamber. The bridge itself was a marvel of quantum engineering, existing simultaneously in multiple realities until settling into a stable state. Captain Harrison stepped through first, followed by Dr. Reynolds. But it was the figures behind them that caused the Council members to rise in astonishment. Representatives from 50 quarantine species emerged, each displaying technology that defied conventional understanding. A being of pure energy floated beside a crystalline entity. A quantum-shifted humanoid walked through a solid wall as if it weren't there. An organic collective mind controlling multiple bodies moved in perfect synchronization. Honored Council, Harrison announced, his voice carrying weight beyond his human frame. Meet the founding members of the Quantum Alliance. The crystalline entity stepped forward, its form reminiscent of High Counselor Ven, but far more complex. I am first light through prism of the Arcturus crystalline minds. Your quarantine forced us to explore the quantum properties of our own bodies. We learned to exist in multiple states simultaneously. The isolation you imposed, the energy being pulsed in translated speech, led us to transcend physical form entirely. I am quantum spark dancing, and my people now explore realities you cannot comprehend. One by one, the representatives introduced themselves, each demonstration of their advancement more impressive than the last. Species that had been deemed primitive now wielded technologies that made the Council's greatest achievements seem obsolete. Elizabeth Morgan, still standing at the chamber center, activated a new holographic display. The Alliance isn't here to demand revenge or reparations. We're here to propose a complete reformation of galactic society. The quantum-shifted humanoid spoke, his form flickering between realities. Imagine a galaxy where advancement isn't measured by adherence to a single technological path, but by the diversity of our approaches, where different ways of thinking are celebrated, not feared. Your quarantine system, Dr. Reynolds added, was based on the assumption that there's only one correct way to develop, one path to the stars, one definition of civilization. She gestured to the assembled representatives. We're living proof that you were wrong. The organic collective stepped forward, its multiple bodies speaking in harmony. We propose a new council structure, one where all species, regardless of their development path, have a voice, where isolation is replaced by collaboration, fear with curiosity. Chancellor Kirks's antennae twitched, and if we refuse, then you become irrelevant, Harrison stated simply. The quantum technologies we've developed make your barriers meaningless, your controls obsolete. We don't need your permission to participate in galactic society anymore. We're offering you the chance to be part of something greater. First light through prism crystalline form, pulsed with rainbow colors. Already, we've established quantum trade routes between quarantined worlds, created scientific exchanges, built cultural understanding. We've done everything you claimed we weren't ready for. The chamber filled with demonstrations of their achievements. Quantum computers that operated across multiple dimensions, ships that could traverse galaxies in moments, medical technologies that could cure diseases by shifting patients between quantum states. The choice is yours, Morgan concluded. But understand this, the old system ends today, one way or another. The only question is whether the Council will help build what comes next, or be remembered as the last remnant of an obsolete order. Zix-9 rose slowly, their scales shifting through colors of thought. I have seen enough, they announced. I motion for an immediate vote on the Alliance's proposal. The chamber erupted in discussion, but there was no fear now. Instead, there was something that hadn't been seen in the Council for centuries. Hope. Hope for a future where difference wasn't something to be contained, but celebrated. As the Council members began their deliberations, Harrison looked at the assembled Alliance representatives and smiled. The quantum revolution hadn't just changed technology, it had changed the very foundation of galactic civilization. And this was only the beginning. The final vote wasn't even close, 197 in favor, 3 abstaining. As the results appeared in gleaming quantum holographic numbers above the Council chamber, centuries of rigid tradition dissolved into something new, something unprecedented. Captain Harrison watched from the Phantom ship's bridge as the Council members signed the new Galactic Charter. Each signature carried weight beyond mere ceremony, quantum-encoded verification that would exist across multiple realities simultaneously, making it virtually impossible to falsify or deny. Quite a day for the history books, Dr. Reynolds remarked beside him, nursing a cup of her still imperfect coffee. Though I suppose we're technically in several history books already, across different quantum realities. The main display showed the transformation already beginning. Council ships were being retrofitted with simplified versions of Phantom technology provided by the Alliance. The first joint scientific teams, Council and formerly quarantined species working together, were preparing to explore phenomena that neither group fully understood alone. Captain, Lieutenant Rodriguez called from her station. We're detecting unusual quantum fluctuations near the Sagittarius arm. Something big. Harrison turned to Reynolds, who was already reviewing the data. Her eyes widened. These readings, they're similar to what I saw in my garage that day, but on a cosmic scale. The chamber's attention shifted to the new phenomenon. The combined sensors of Council and Alliance ships painted an extraordinary picture. Beings of pure quantum probability, living in the spaces between conventional realities. They had always been there, watching, waiting for other species to evolve enough to perceive them. First contact, Harrison breathed. The real first contact. The quantum beings reached out, their communication transcending normal space-time. They had watched humanity's rise, the Council's fear, the Alliance's formation. All of it had been a test, preparing the galaxy's species for something greater. Elizabeth Morgan, still standing in the Council chamber, translated the quantum language in real time. Another gift from humanity's years of secret development. They're inviting us to join them, she announced. All of us. They say we're ready now that we've learned to see beyond our differences. High Counselor Ven's crystalline form resonated with pure joy. Then let us not keep them waiting. The combined knowledge of all our species working together will be just the beginning. First light through prism finished for her. The Phantom ship's quantum drive hummed to life, but this time it wasn't hiding from anyone. The vessel shifted partially into quantum space, creating a bridge between realities that all could see. Other ships, Council and Alliance alike, began following suit, their crews learning to perceive the quantum realm together. Dr. Reynolds stood at her station, fingers dancing across quantum-sensitive controls. You know, she mused, maybe this is what my coffee maker was trying to tell me all along. Sometimes the best discoveries happen when you stop trying to force things to work the way you think they should. Harrison smiled, watching as ships from dozens of species moved in formation around them, preparing for humanity's greatest journey yet. I think that's what the Council needed to learn too. The galaxy isn't about controlling the path of progress. It's about seeing where all our different paths can lead together. The quantum beings beckoned, offering knowledge and mysteries beyond anything they had imagined. As the combined fleet prepared to venture into the unknown, Harrison couldn't help but appreciate the irony. The Council had quarantined humanity out of fear of what they might become. Instead, they had helped create something far more powerful, a galaxy united not by force or fear, but by the shared desire to explore, to learn, and to grow. All ships report ready, Captain, Rodriguez announced. Harrison took one last look at the Council station, now a symbol not of restriction but of transformation. Then let's show them what humanity's really capable of, he said. What we're all capable of. Together. The Phantom ship led the way, crossing the threshold between what was and what could be. They had rewritten the rules of physics, of society, of what was possible. Now it was time to write the next chapter, not just for humanity, but for all species who dared to dream beyond the boundaries others set for them. The quantum realm beckoned, and the united galaxy answered its call.